name is Debbie Alsop, and welcome to another episode of Bright Day Thoughts. Today I am joined by Dawn Dana, who is a midwife in Ventura, and she specializes in home birth. So tell us a little something about yourself.
Well, like Debbie said, my name is Dawn Dana. I'm a licensed midwife in California, licensed by the medical board. I do home birth. I see women in my home and their home, do prenatal care, attendance at labors and births, and 6 weeks of postpartum care. I've been doing this for about 19 years, a little over 19 years, and have been with about 800 families to welcome their babies.
Wow, and I was one of them.
Yes, yay!
So how I did this a long time ago, I knew that I was going to conceive a child in a certain time, so I went out hunting for midwives because I had done all my research like 10 years earlier, and when I had gone to find those midwives, a lot of them had moved away or whatever, and so then we found you and Sue Turner, and we went and interviewed you. The thing I like about home births compared to like when you're talking to a doctor, speaking to a midwife, you feel like you're on even footing with them. You can interview them expressing what you want with your birth, and then you hear from them, you know, the legalities and things like that. Like they keep you like understanding what's legal and what's not legal in California. Because I understand in Florida, at least back in the 1900s, you were allowed to give birth to like triplets in water or something in Florida, but you're not allowed to in California. So there's like certain things like that where they will let you know what's up, but you can let them know what you want, and they don't sit there and tell you, oh, ew, no, you can't have that. Although I did interview a few nurse midwives, and they were a little more strict with like, oh, no, you can't do that. You know, they pretty much stuck with what they wanted to do. But you're pretty much, you listen to the moms and they come to you and give you an idea of what they want. Is that how it works?
Yeah, and there are two different kinds of midwives in the state of California. There are certified nurse midwives who primarily, like you said, have been nurses first, worked in OB rotation in the hospital, decided they wanted more responsibility, went for additional training, and most of them work in the hospital still under physicians. There is some overlap. And then there are licensed midwives, and we are midwives by training and by heart, meaning that we come, with the premise that this birth, this baby are not going to matter more to anybody than they will to your family. And so it's shared responsibility, and our job is to use our clinical skills and experience to support your birth vision and you and your baby's safety.
And do you quite often suggest that they have a backup doctor, or
Yeah.
is that always suggested? Or?
It is always suggested,
Always suggested.
absolutely. In fact, it's a condition of my license that I work with a backup physician. So, that's a great point. I think it's really important to know that home birth or working with a home birth midwife is not like an all or nothing proposition. That we do work with the medical community. We have great relationships with the hospitals and the OBs here in town. We transfer to the hospital about 15% of the time for first-time moms. Less than that if you've already given birth. But we work with a backup physician. Our clients, we call them clients, not patients. Our clients see the backup
That's
physician.
very important.
Yes.
Because patient in Latin means something like, I can't remember, but basically they can boss you around.
And it implies an illness. And
Yeah.
pregnant women are not ill, and newborn babies are not ill.
Which is why it's a good idea to look into giving birth at home.
Yeah.
Hospitals are full of germs, and they're full of people who are sick. They're full of medically managing every little thing that goes on there. They just want to micromanage everything, and so if you're giving birth there, I would imagine they want to manage you too.
And they need to manage. They need to think about a population, whereas, I do 4 to 6 births a month. So I have a very small practice. I can work with individuals. Our prenatal visits are about an hour long or so versus, 5 or 10 minutes with an OB. We get to know each other.
Oh, yes.
We form a relationship of trust, and so they're, again, shared responsibility.
Yes.
Versus, a lot of consumers of hospital services want the hospital to take responsibility for their birth.
I highly recommend taking responsibility for your birth. It's so
Yeah.
much fun.
Take responsibility for your body, your baby, your birth, your
That's what I was
health.
gonna say. It's like it's your body, and your body knows how to give birth. And if you could just have that pressure off of you of how you have to do things a certain way when you're under someone's, watchful eye in a hospital, but at home you can pretty much do what you want. they let me walk around as I wanted. I say they because Sue Turner and Dawn Nader were my midwives at the time. Now Sue is pretty much only seeing people in the clinics, and you are seeing people at home.
Right.
And you do water birth still?
Absolutely.
And home birth?
Yeah.
Natural birth in just on your bed or
wherever a woman finds herself pushing her baby out. Yeah. And another point I was going to say is that human birth is an overwhelmingly successful event. There are 7 billion of us, over 7 billion of us on the planet currently. And I think we got this idea in our society that technology and intervention can improve that success. And what we know is that it doesn't necessarily. In some small percentage, it does. But there was a great study, and I won't remember the name of the site, but I can get that, that showed that the most scientific birth, the most scientifically successful birth, is actually the least technological birth. So, just to understand that our technology, our interventions, have their share of effects. And what midwives work to do is consider each thing that we might introduce at a birth or during prenatal care, and do the benefits outweigh the risks or the potential risks or the unknown risks,
Well, also from what I remember, at least when I was in labor and everything, the thought of getting in a car to go to a hospital, there was nothing that I would want less than sitting in a car. Like maybe being hunched up on the floor or something, maybe, but I would imagine that would cause flight or fight to take over. And is that one of the reasons that people need Pitocin? Do their births actually stop?
They can. Birth is a very mammal event, human birth, and other mammals in the wild, if they are interrupted, their labor will stop until they find themselves in a safe place again. And so, perhaps that is the need for Pitocin and epidurals.
Because maybe you don't feel safe in a hospital. I know I wouldn't.
Right. Although, less than 1% of the people in this country give birth out of the hospital. So there's also that intellectual layer that overlays for humans. Yeah. And some of us do have a sense of safety in the hospital, or greater safety. So maybe that's why birth is as successful as it is, even in the hospital.
In the hospital, yeah, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
But, the deal is we should have as much information to make truly informed choices about where we birth.
Yeah.
And so just that people are aware that home birth is an option, birth center birth is an option, birthing in the hospital with a doula is an option, taking your support into the hospital.
Dawn actually became my doula because, along with my mom, because I all of a sudden dilated really, really fast, and she told me what you do. She told my mom to tell me what to do, and so I don't know if you remember that.
I don't.
She doesn't remember.
13 years later.
Here's a little trick when you're trying to when you're not ready to push. I think maybe that was it. Maybe I hadn't dilated yet, but I was wanting to push, something like that. And she's like, yo.
Yeah.
And so she taught my mom what to do. But that's another good thing about midwives. They kind of become your doulas. Mm-hmm. They're like everything. And things can be happening really fast, but you look over at your midwives and they seemingly are moving so slowly, and everything is nice and calm. And my naked hands got to be the first skin-to-skin contact with my child. I mean, human contact with my child. Doctors are usually masked and with gloves, and they're coming at your kid, and I didn't want that. So that's another thing. You can choose. Also, the vitamin K shot. Mm-hmm. I said I absolutely do not want my child having the vitamin K shot, and they said to me, well, if there's a lot of bleeding, if we feel it's been a more violent birth than what you would expect, and maybe the baby's bleeding, they were ready to give my child the vitamin K shot, but they didn't. Because she didn't need it. So I love that too. It isn't just, your kids are not just cattle. They're not just going to do something to your child because we're in a hospital and this is the rule and everyone gets it. She didn't have is it the nitrate or nitrite that they put?
Erythromycin. It used to be silver nitrate. Yeah.
Oh, they've changed it. Okay, that's better. Because they used to burn.
Right.
Yeah, they would do that because they would just assume that all the moms had gonorrhea, and they wanted to make sure the kid didn't have gonorrhea because then they'd go blind. So they were just giving everybody these drops. Well, when you've got a midwife,
we can provide individualized care. So the protocols that need to be in place for a population are different than what we can do caring for 4 women a month versus 400 some hospitals.
We're individuals when we're 4 women a month.
Right. And so we have your records. And that's the other thing, home birth is not completely non-clinical.
Yes, they do keep
blood
records.
work, cultures, assess pulse and, you know,
They
fundal
weigh
height.
you.
And,
But you guys were amazing because I told them, okay, well, I don't want any tests. I don't want amniocentesis. I don't want anything. I don't want the gestational diabetes test. I don't want anything. I don't even want to know how much I weigh because I know I'm eating appropriately. But should you see something that is a signal to you and you feel you need to discuss it with me, okay, then we'll discuss it then. But my daughter was 3 years old before I finally got my records from them, and I saw how much I weighed. I was like, whoa! But they listen to you. So I would stand on the scale and I wouldn't look, and they would document it. They would do whatever they needed to do that was okay, but I never wanted any internal exams. Before I got pregnant, I said to them, okay, if you need to come in here for pap smears or whatever, do that now, because that's another good thing. They offer pap smears and things like that.
well woman care.
Well woman care. So I'm like, okay, do whatever you need to do, because after I'm pregnant, nobody's coming in here, you know, and the baby will just come. They knew when my baby had turned. They knew. Dawn knew that the cord was around my child's neck at the birth, and I had never had an internal exam. I was like, how in the world did you know that? So I guess officially you were the first to touch her because she took the cord off before she fully came out. But how did she know that? I never had an internal exam. Also, when it came down to it, they would say to me, now the next visit is the time for the gestational diabetes. And I would say, oh, no, I'm not having that. And they'd go, okay, well, we just have to inform you. And so you have to do the records to, like, okay, I guess I had to sign something if I remember correctly. Okay, they informed me, patient declined or client declined. But they've got to let you know, because should you decide to have the gestational diabetes the next visit, you've got to know not to eat before you go.
Yeah.
So,
And you have a right to the information to make that choice. And that's what I tell our clients, is you're making a head and a heart choice with each decision based on your health history, your family health, your belief systems about health, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's just really wonderful because you feel like you're a team player.
It's a relationship.
Yeah, and I also knew that their babies, Sue Turner and Dawn Dana's babies, were like 15 pounds, some of them, that they gave birth to, like in homes and things. Like they were telling me a few stories back then, or
12 and a half pounds.
12 and a half.
Biggest baby.
Was it 12 and a half? I thought it was
5
15.
pounds to 12 and a half pounds is the range.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, and like my daughter was 9, and people who I know, most of their babies are like 7.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, you gave us ideas on diet and ideas on how to have your milk stay longer. I breastfed for 19 months, and then it was my daughter who wanted to stop. It wasn't that I ran out of milk or anything.
Right.
So they give you like education on a full, just everything.
Right.
And it was great. You know, I did have a postpartum problem, and Dawn came with me to the hospital, and she stayed with me. And you know, and after the baby was born, I mean, they went in my fridge and made me like this smoothie thing. You know, you just blended all this stuff together. They did laundry. They went and cleaned up everything for me. I mean, it was really nice. And also, they put me in touch with this. It was like some kind of an order form. Like there's this box
For the birth kit.
For the birth kit. So they tell you how to find that. And you have like this birth kit. It's like everything you need. What's in there?
So our families order a birth kit, everybody who's birthing, and that has all the kind of bulky, disposable, personal, and herbal items for your birth. So it's got Chuck's pads for the bed, it's got herbs for the perineum after, herbs for the baby's cord, little newborn hat, and then we bring to the birth all our kind of medical and clinical equipment.
Yes, I asked for an electrolyte drip. So they just took off my picture and hung up the little bag, and I got to have that, and it made me feel so much better.
Did IV fluids.
Yes, and I asked for a catheter because I knew I had to go to the bathroom, but I just couldn't get in touch with that part of me, you know, so they gave me a catheter. They gave me whatever I wanted, but they didn't force anything on me. Like, I didn't want my child to have the vitamin K shot, and because it wasn't indicated, because she didn't need it, she didn't have it.
Right.
They give you instructions on what to do should you hemorrhage after they leave, and I think you were with me a very long time.
Right. Like stay several hours after birth.
Several hours.
And then come back to the home the next day, and at least once again during the first week. So the follow-up care is also pretty.
And then I remember there was a time I went to your office again.
At 2 weeks and 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Was part
So
of it.
you know, and then they put me in touch with a pediatrician who was used to people giving birth at home and not going to give them any hassle about that, and be a little bit supportive about it, and also understand that the kids don't want the parents don't want the kids to be vaccinated. So they are not just home birth. They give you this whole
family support.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, just all the way around. So if you're living near Ventura, I don't know, how far out would you go?
Go about 45 minutes, so maybe from the Westlake area to the Santa Barbara area to the Ojai area.
So you could get Dawn Dana to come to your home and help you. And, if you don't know who to get in your area, because perhaps you live in the South Bay or somewhere else, why don't you give Dawn Dana a call, because maybe she knows some midwives to put you in touch with.
Or check California Association of Midwives website. Has a listing of all the licensed midwives in California.
That's great. And is there anything else you'd like people to know?
Just when you were talking about equipment, what I use more than anything is trust in birth, patience, sense of humor, and tender loving care. And then I have all kinds of equipment if that comes up. But
yeah, they really do. I mean, I can't tell you. I regret not filming my birth because it was just so lovely. I was in my bedroom. I had a tub that I own because I own a birthing tub. And it was just, I mean, there were a lot of things going on around me, but it's as if the midwives, they set this wall up that protects the birthing mother from anything going on in the outside world, so she can just focus.
Right, create a sacred space for birthing.
Yeah, so if you would like to create a sacred place for birthing in your home, you know who to call.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining me with another installment of Sacred Birth. Now go, anchor the light. Hua!